Welcome back to Happy Place Home Studios video series, Live Streaming from Scratch. This is episode 5, Controlling Your Stream with Streamdeck. So what is Streamdeck? Well, Streamdeck is a really amazing device from Elgato, who makes a lot of amazing devices that we use right here on the show, such as CamLink, Streamdeck, and some other things that we'll show you later. Basically, it allows you to look like you have an entire production team behind you. You know, when you're streaming, you may want to do just what I'm doing right now. One camera, one person speaking, and really not go very far beyond that. But you may also want to do some things with the things you've learned right here in this series. For example, you might like to have more than one camera. And you want to show images from that camera or even cropped images from that camera. You're going to want to have pre-produced video and audio clips, music and video that you can bring in when you need to. And of course, you may want to show things from other applications on your scenes in the background. And whatever you're doing, you're going to want to make it look absolutely smooth and seamless, as if you had an entire production team behind you. And that is what Streamdeck is going to help you do. Now, I'm not that great at it because my eyesight isn't very good. So that always curbs what I can do. But you're going to be able to look smooth and professional with the help of Elgato's Streamdeck. So let's learn how it works and how you can use it right now. Before we start jumping into the actual installation process for the Streamdeck, I wanted to hook you a little more by showing you more about what it does and how it does it, and how easy it makes life when you want to do a really nice stream for your viewers. So you'll notice on the screen right now, I've got my regular camera shot, and I've got an insert of my Streamdeck that's actually on my NDI. You remember that from our added camera, and my iPhone. So what I want to do here is just show you how I'm using some of the buttons in real time on the Streamdeck. So one is that I've got a button that's programmed to turn on and off the NDI source within the same scene as my regular camera shot. You're going to find that you're really going to want to use scenes a lot, but you'll also use sources within scenes to be able to do things like this. In this scene, I have my regular camera shot, but I also can turn on and off the NDI. And that is really handy for a lot of different purposes in your live streams. I can program every button, and I can have multiple sets of the buttons to program. So this is one that I use all the time. It's got a little bit of everything in it. So for example, I have got regular images that I can turn on and off. So sometimes I record for a lesson site that I really like. I really recommend this guy, by the way. And so that's very, very easy to do. I have images and videos that I use to start some of my other streams. For example, this is my Constitution Time startup sequence right here. Notice that I can turn off the insert, and when I go to another scene and then come back, the insert's still off. If I turn the inserted image on, go to another scene, and then come back, it remains where I left it. So that's a really cool feature, both of OBS and of Streamdeck. Now, I showed you in the earlier video that I have little MP4s that I can overlay for different scenarios and that kind of thing. So here's one. And here's another. So that kind of thing is very easy to do with the buttons on the Streamdeck. Now, another cool thing, that obviously shows you that I can control scenes and I can control sources within scenes. But you can actually control OBS itself. So for example, this button on the top right is what I use to start my stream and stop my stream. The third button down is what I use to start recording and stop recording. So those are recording and transport functions within OBS itself. So you've got some really cool things that you can do with these completely programmable buttons. And You can obviously use OBS itself for these functions, and many people do, I'm sure, live and in real time as they're doing their stream. However, to do that, you're looking at the screen, and no matter how you position the screen, it's going to be obvious that your attention is wandering from your audience while you're doing that. So the Stream Deck is very easy to do without looking, especially when you're really used to the functions. So it just makes your stream and what you're doing look that much easier, that much faster, live and in real time. So great stuff. And it's very easy to use and configure. So that's the next thing we're going to look at. Let's do it. All right, let's get started by downloading and installing the Streamdeck XL software, or whichever model of Stream Deck you're choosing to purchase. Elgato makes this very easy with their excellent website at elgato.com. From the top, choose Stream Deck and then Software. Use the left-hand drop-down to choose your product. It will not show on the screen initially. You use the scroll bar to the right, go down to Stream Deck, and choose your model. It's the same software for every model, to my knowledge, but choose the correct model anyway. Choose your platform, and then go ahead and choose download from down below just a little bit here. That will download the software. When it has completed downloading, go ahead and click on the package or whatever your browser calls for, and then we will go ahead and run the installer. So we'll continue, and it's pretty much just a regular Macintosh installation, although it doesn't install quite the way most Macintosh software installs. So go ahead and agree to the licensing, and then we'll install. It's going to ask you for your password depending on your system settings, and then it will install the software. Okay, this pops up and automatically runs the Stream Deck software for you, and you're ready to begin configuration and installation. Now this screen will configure itself to what you actually have plugged in as far as a Stream Deck goes. And if you don't have one plugged in, as I don't happen to have one plugged in at this moment, then you'll see something like this. Well, I've just realized I need to order another Stream Deck because I want to show you my Stream Deck in its unplugged state, but that means I can't use it to do the recording of this segment. And I got to tell you, no fun compared to being able to use the Stream Deck. But here's the Stream Deck, and it's a very, very well designed, very beautiful little device. It has two components, as you can see. One is the main panel, and the other is the back part. You do pass the cable through the back part, and they just go together nice and easily magnetically, so that is totally cool. And the cable that comes with has a USB-C to connect into the Stream Deck, and then a USB, I believe 2 or 3 compatible to plug into your computer. And obviously you can use an adapter to get into a USB-C device. So I'm now going to plug this guy in to the computer that I just installed the Stream Deck software on. Okay, back over to my installation. We're going to go ahead and do a little housekeeping here. I'm going to do a new Finder window, and I'm going to go to my applications, and we will locate the Stream Deck software, and we're going to go ahead and drag that over to our menu bar. And that's what it looks like. So when we want to, we'll be ready to launch that, which I guess I am ready to do that right this very moment. You'll notice that it now looks quite different because it's actually talking to the Stream Deck XL that I just plugged in via the USB port. Now you'll also notice up at the top it has a little Stream Deck icon up here, which allows you to do some configuration, set preferences, and has some more actions involved there. And of course, that will also be part of your update process. Now, unlike what I showed you earlier, I now have next to no configuration of my Stream Deck. So that's going to allow us to go ahead and start showing you how to configure some basic functions on your own Stream Deck. There's one other thing that's worth doing before we go into the actual instruction on how to start programming your Stream Deck. And that is to go back to the Elgato site, and under Stream Deck, there's this Get Started button here. And there are some excellent videos for you to watch to get your own picture directly from Elgato of what Stream Deck can do, how it does it, and some configuration and all that type of thing. So it's well worth watching those videos if you want to take a few minutes to do that before or after we dive in here. But hey, guess what? I have an even faster way for you to get to that welcome screen. The button that's configured on your Stream Deck right now, the only button configured on it, is a welcome button that takes you to the Elgato website and to that very same welcome screen that we just saw. So that's how cool Stream Deck is. It's time to learn how to configure profiles in your Stream Deck for use with OBS. For the following sequence, I have switched back to my main computer so I can have the highest resolution possible for the screen captures. But it's very interesting filming this particular sequence because taking video of OBS with OBS is always a bit of a challenge. But we'll get through it, and in the process, we'll learn even more about configuring the Stream Deck. Welcome to the window to forever effect that you get when you are screen capturing OBS using OBS. You'll just kind of have to ignore that effect. What we're focused on is really down here, because I want you to understand what it is that we're configuring Stream Deck to control. I have a scene called C Slides, and that scene has several sources within it. It has a source from NDI, which is my iPhone. It actually has two sources for the 4K Sony camera. One is full size and one is part size on the lower right-hand side of the screen. And of course, it has a source for capturing the screen itself. So what we'll be doing is we'll be configuring buttons to control things like turning on and off the camera source in the lower right there that you can see now, and the NDI source, which is actually a picture of the Stream Deck that you can see that I'm actually using in real time. And you'll notice that the sources are aligned in such a way so that the small windows can overlay the larger window because they're earlier in the sequence. You'll understand this much better when you set it up for yourself, but that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to create buttons that control these functions. Now, as I mentioned, we have actually moved to a different system. You'll notice that the menu bar is at the bottom instead of the left, for example. And what we're going to do now is really learn how to configure Stream Deck. So to start that process, let's go ahead and launch Stream Deck. Here's my Stream Deck icon in the menu bar. I'll click it. I've configured this to have Stream Deck over on the left so that the right-hand side can be used for our view of our Stream Deck in real life and myself, of course, in the lower right-hand screen. So what are we looking at here in the Stream Deck interface? Well, we've got the center portion which contains our buttons. And this happens to be my main production set of buttons that I use. And when I start actually configuring a new profile, I'll lose all those buttons and those functions, which I need to make this video. So that's the first thing we'll be doing, is putting some of those key functions into our new profile. On the right-hand side of the screen are all the functions in all the different applications, system functions, and even Stream Deck functions itself that you can configure as part of your button set. We're mostly concerned with the set at the top here, which is under OBS. And there's actually only 5 functions that we're concerned with when we're using Streamdeck to run OBS. That is our scene button, which allows us to access scenes, our mixer audio, our record function, which is the first button I'll configure so I can control my ability to control my recording here. This stream function, which allows you to start and stop your stream. And then down here at the bottom, the sources. Remember, the C-Slides scene has several sources that we'll be configuring buttons to control. All right, I do not want to do all of that work in my production set. So what I want to do is create a new profile. So to do that, there's a gear right up here near the top, and we're going to just simply click that gear, and that will open a configuration tool within Streamdeck. Creating a new profile is quite simple within this configuration screen. First of all, you'll want to be on the Profiles tab up here at the top. We're going to want to create a new profile on top of the couple of profiles that I already have here. So to do that, we'll just click on the plus in the lower left-hand side of the screen. Now, the only thing I really need to do here is change the name of the profile. We do not have to make this an OBS-specific profile, and nor do I recommend it, since you can only have one. And I think that's a holdover from the legacy method that they had to set this up. I do not believe that you need to designate that as an OBS profile. And we don't want to make this our default. You may do that later if in fact you want to keep this and have it load up every time. That is what the default profile does, is it automatically loads when you launch Streamdeck. Okay, let's rename this profile. I'm simply going to call it My OBS. And we'll click off, and that'll save that name. And now we can go ahead and close that configuration tool window. Next thing we'll want to do is actually select that profile to be our current profile in our Streamdeck session. So use the drop down and choose your newly created My OBS. And there you go. Now in this new profile, we only have one button, which is that default button we already talked about that takes us to the actual website for a couple of videos. And we'll leave that there just for a point of reference. Let's configure a few buttons. So as I said, the very first one that I want to configure is my record button so that I have control over the recording that I'm doing for you right this very moment. So to do that, very simple. We're going to drag and drop the record button into the top right button of the Streamdeck set. And we'll let that go. And that record button is now configured. Down below, as you set up a new button, you will notice that there are additional pieces of information that you can put in. In the case of record, you can just simply put in a title. And I'll just put in REC as the title for the record button. Be sure not to press enter when you put a title in, because that is a multi-line field and it will actually go to a second line. It can be a little bit confusing. So I'm going to test that record button. Well, my record button worked like a champ and turned off my recording. But we're back in business now, and we're ready to move on and configure another button. This time I want to configure a source button that controls this video, the video that's in the lower right of your screen with myself in it. So with a source button, we'll be able to use that as an on-off switch for this video. So I'm going to pull the source control into the second column right up there at the top. And we'll just drop that in. And we'll see that with a source button, we have a little more work to do to configure it down here. So let's take a look at that. All right, first we have a title. Let's just call this small 4K. Because it's the small image from the 4K window that's showing up on the screen. The collection is the profile of scenes and sources that we have set up within OBS. Each one can have a name, and you can have many of them, and you will have many of them. It automatically knows which one you're using, in this case SD number 2, as long as you are actually running OBS at the same time you're running Streamdeck, which we are. All right, so remember I said the scene name is C Slides. So we'll locate C Slides within the list here. There it is. And by picking the scene, it will automatically show us only the sources that are in that scene. So when I use the sources drop down here, there are 2 4K sources. They have the same name. What matters is where they are in the list. And in the list, they actually have a descriptive name. Well, I just happen to know that the second one is the small image that's in the lower right of your screen right now. So that's the one that we will pick. So we've got the Sony Plus 4K, C Slides as our scene, and there's our button. Now, if I've configured it properly, I should be able to turn myself off right now, and I'm gone. And hopefully now I'm back. In similar fashion, let's create a button that controls the NDI source, which is my iPhone camera on the Stream Deck. So we'll be able to turn that one on and off as well. So we're just going to simply do the same thing. We're going to drag source over into the second button position on the second column, and we will configure it. And we'll simply call it NDI. And the scene is the same as last time, C Slides. And because the NDI source is the top in the list under the scene inside of OBS, it automatically popped up, so that's cool. And again, if we've configured that properly, the Stream Deck should disappear right now and come back right now. Let's just go ahead and take everything away and bring everything back. All right, so we can now control those 2 sources within the C Slides scene. You can easily configure buttons to show various types of media from your PC. You can have it play an MP4 or a WAV file, or just simply show an image. There's a lot of different types of media that OBS supports and that you can configure to run on your Stream Deck. So I have a little loop that I play every once in a while. We'll just configure that here. It's an MP4 file. So what I want to do is I actually want to configure a scene, because that is a separate scene. And you'll find that you'll use separate scenes for a lot of different things. So I'm going to grab a scene button, scene control here from OBS, and we'll move it to the top of the third column. And we'll configure it, as always. I'm going to call this RIF4 after the name of the file. And I will choose RIF4 from the list. Let's locate it here. It's actually called GD RIF4. There we go. Okay. I don't want to play that right now, because when I choose a scene, it actually puts that scene in control. So right now, C Slides is in control. And if I put RIF4 in control, I've got to have a way to get back to C Slides. So I'm going to do the exact same thing again to be able to get back to C Slides. I'm going to configure a control. I'm going to drag a scene into the second position. And we'll configure that to go back to C Slides. I'll name it C Slides. And we'll choose C Slides from the list. Okay, now that I have both buttons, I'll go ahead and try the first and return to this scene when it's done. So that's how you can put scenes in as button controls and navigate back to where you came from. Now we added a button for record let's go ahead and add a button for stream. That's a very, very easy thing to do. It's one of the 5 controls here. And I'm going to drag that down to the lowest right-hand button, because your stream button should be accessible very easily and without looking as you start and stop your stream. And you want it to be in a very definite place. So upper right, lower right, upper left, lower left, etc. You also have to be careful with the stream button on the Stream Deck. You don't want to press it twice accidentally, because that will start and stop your stream. Now, one thing that you may have noticed is that the buttons have a lighted state so that you can tell whether they're on or off. For example, the record is on right now. It's lit. Paying attention to those states will really help you when it comes to something like your stream key. You can easily look and make sure, yes, my stream is on. Yes, I hit the button. No, I didn't turn the stream off. So that's very easy to configure. Now, there are a lot of different types of controls that you can configure on your Stream Deck, not only for your OBS application, but for other applications as well. As you scan down through the list, you can also do Stream Deck controls itself. Stream Deck has its own functions which you can control. So you really want to explore what you can do with Stream Deck. System functions, other applications, obviously OBS, and the Stream Deck itself. Each profile can actually be called by another profile from a button. So you may have profiles that you use while you're in your show for particular portions of your live stream. They may have their own profile. You can pull that up from your main profile. So you just have a lot of capability with Stream Deck. Just a quick word about designing your layout. You see here I've returned to my main production layout. And I can personally vouch that it's very tempting and very easy to have too many active buttons in your layouts, to really try to put everything in the kitchen sink in there. But it really is so useful to have a nice clean layout that isn't too cluttered and that makes good use of the corners, for example, the places that are easy to reach and identify without looking. The 4 buttons in each of the corners serve that function. The middle buttons are the least usable without looking. And when you're doing a stream by yourself, that is really important. Use multiple profiles, because then, remember, you can configure a button in Stream Deck to access another profile from the profile that you're in. That allows you to have specific areas of functionality on different profiles, and again, make use of those corners and those easy to reach, easy to remember, no look areas of the Stream Deck tool. Let's configure some buttons to let us switch our profiles so that you can see how easy that is to do and how it can be a part of your profile design. Now, everything we've done so far has been with the OBS controls, but just a little ways below the OBS controls are the Stream Deck controls. And in your setup, they'll be closed initially. Go ahead and open them. Switch profile is the second control down. So what I want to do is I want to drag the switch control to a button position. Very easy, same as we've been doing. And it's even easier to configure. So down below, I'm going to give this a name. And the name to most easily use is just which profile you're switching to. In this case, we're switching to My OBS. And the profile we're switching to can either be the next profile or can be a specific profile. And again, we're going to My OBS. So very, very easy to set that up. Now, from the instance I set it up, I can go ahead and use it. And here we are in My OBS. So what makes sense is to go ahead and configure the same button to go back where we started. But in reality, we'll talk about the design of that in just a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing in reverse. We'll drag that into the same position is handy, obviously, right? So we're going to go ahead and configure this, and we'll just call this main to get back to our main profile, and we'll choose our main profile from the list. There we are, and that's how easy it is to switch back and forth between your profiles. So given how easy that is, if you think about that to start with, you might want to make your first column different profiles you can access, or your last column, whichever you prefer, but group them together. And then think about that in terms of your design. Here are my buttons to start and stop my recordings and my stream. And here are my buttons to switch between scenes in different profiles. That way you're leveraging the best positions to have the buttons for that no look that we talked about, and keeping them as organized as possible. I can honestly say that Elgato's Streamdeck is one of the most useful pieces of equipment in my live streaming stack, and one of the most useful in my entire studio. With it, you'll save a lot of time and look far more professional, smooth, and polished. Thank you for watching Happy Place Home Studio series on live streaming from scratch. This is the conclusion of episode 5. Continue on to episode 6, where you'll discover Blackmagic Design's ATEM Mini Pro and what it can do for a multi-camera studio.